A nurse walked into the wrong patient room. The man inside became her husband, years later. Sarah Chen pushed through the doors of the cardiac wing at 11:47 p.m., her feet aching in shoes that had carried her through a 14-hour shift. The hospital corridors were dimly lit, populated only by the soft sounds of machines monitoring lives and the occasional whisper of medical staff moving between rooms. She'd volunteered to cover the overnight shift for her colleague Maria, whose daughter had come down with flu, and now exhaustion weighed on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. Room 314. Mrs. Patterson post-operative cardiac surgery needed her midnight medication and vitals check. Sarah had been working as a cardiac nurse for 3 years, long enough to navigate these halls in her sleep, but tonight the familiar routine felt more challenging than usual. The overtime hours were necessary, her student loans wouldn't pay themselves, and her mother's assisted living facility fees had increased again, but they were taking a toll on her energy and focus. She knocked softly on the door before entering, not wanting to startle her patient if she was sleeping. The room was dark, except for the soft glow of monitoring equipment, and Sarah moved quietly toward the bedside, pulling out her stethoscope and preparing to check vital signs. "Mrs. Patterson," she whispered, reaching for the bedside lamp switch. "I'm sorry, but I think you have the wrong room," came a voice from the darkness. "Definitely, male, definitely not Mrs. Patterson." Sarah froze her hand halfway to the light switch. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought this was 314. It's 316. Easy mistake to make, especially this late at night." Sarah flicked on the lamp and found herself looking at a man probably in his early 30s with dark hair and kind eyes that held more amusement than annoyance at her intrusion. He was sitting up in bed wearing a hospital gown and the kind of expression that suggested he'd been awake despite the late hour. "I am so embarrassed," Sarah said, her cheeks burning with professional mortification. "I've been working a double shift, and apparently my navigation skills have abandoned me." "Don't worry about it. Honest mistake." He smiled, and Sarah noticed that it reached his eyes in a way that made her momentarily forget her exhaustion. "I wasn't sleeping anyway." "Are you in pain? Should I call your nurse?" "No, just restless. Hospital beds aren't exactly designed for comfort, and I'm not used to being inactive for this long." Sarah realized she was lingering in a patient room where she had no business being, but something about the man's demeanor invited conversation rather than hasty retreat. "What are you in for, if you don't mind me asking?" "Minor heart procedure. Ablation for an arrhythmia that's been causing problems. Should be discharged tomorrow if everything looks good." He gestured to the chair beside his bed. "You look like you could use a moment to sit down." "I really shouldn't. I have patients to check on medications to distribute. When's the last time you took a break?" The question was so direct and unexpectedly caring that Sarah found herself actually considering it. When had she last sat down during this shift? When had she last had a conversation that wasn't about medical procedures or patient care? "I grabbed a granola bar around 6, she said, realizing as she spoke how inadequate that sounded. 6 p.m., it's almost midnight. Sit down for 5 minutes before you collapse." Sarah looked at this stranger, who was showing more concern for her well-being than she'd shown for herself all day. Against her better judgment and hospital protocol, she settled into the visitor's chair beside his bed. "I'm Alex, by the way, Alex Morrison. Sarah Chen, and I really should explain that I don't normally wander into random patient rooms and start conversations." What made tonight different? Sarah considered the question seriously. Honestly, exhaustion makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. Lower inhibitions reduced filtering between thoughts and actions, like accidentally entering the wrong room and then staying to chat with a complete stranger. Exactly like that. Sarah found herself smiling for the first time in hours. "What's your excuse for inviting strange nurses to sit down in your room at midnight?" "Insomnia brought on by anxiety about tomorrow's discharge and return to normal life. Plus, you looked like you needed someone to remind you to take care of yourself." "Are you nervous about going home?" Alex was quiet for a moment, and Sarah sensed there was more to his situation than a simple medical procedure. "It's complicated. I've been living alone since my divorce was finalized 6 months ago. Coming back from the hospital to an empty apartment feels more daunting than it probably should. Divorce is hard even under the best circumstances. Medical issues on top of that must be overwhelming. What about you family waiting at home when you finish this shift?" Sarah shook her head. "Just me and my cat, Mr. Whiskers. Glamorous life of a single nurse working too many hours to pay off student loans and help support my mother." Mr. Whiskers is an excellent name for a cat. He came with the name from the shelter. I figured he was old enough that changing it would just confuse him further. They talked for another 10 minutes about pets, about the challenges of working in healthcare, about the strange intimacy of hospital environments where strangers shared vulnerabilities they'd never discuss in normal social settings. Sarah found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't experienced in months, enjoying conversation that had nothing to do with medical protocols or family obligations. "I should really get back to work," she said, finally, though she was reluctant to leave the first pleasant interaction she'd had all week. "Of course. Thank you for the company. It was exactly what I needed. Thank you for reminding me that I'm human, not just a medication dispensing machine." As Sarah stood up, Alex reached for something on his bedside table. "This might sound presumptuous, but would you like some tea? I have an emergency stash of chamomile that I travel with, helps with anxiety and insomnia." "You travel with tea bags. Don't judge. Everyone has their coping mechanisms." "I wasn't judging. I was thinking it's actually very practical." Sarah checked her watch. Mrs. Patterson's medications could wait another few minutes, and the idea of warm tea sounded more appealing than anything had in weeks. "The water from the bathroom sink gets hot enough if you let it run for a while," Alex said, pulling 2 tea bags from a small container in his travel kit. "You've clearly done this before. Business travel teaches you to be resourceful. Hotel rooms, hospital rooms, they're all just temporary spaces that you have to make work for your needs." Sarah found herself helping Alex prepare tea using a water pitcher from his bedside table and hot water from the bathroom sink. It was probably the most unprofessional thing she'd done in her entire nursing career, but it also felt like the most human interaction she'd had with a patient in months. "What kind of business are you in?" she asked, as they waited for the tea to steep. "Software development. I design applications for healthcare systems, actually. Ironic that I spend my time trying to make hospitals more efficient while lying in a hospital bed myself." "What kind of applications?" "Patient tracking systems, medication management scheduling software. The goal is to reduce administrative burden on medical staff so they can spend more time on actual patient care." Sarah was intrigued. "Do you work with nurses in the development process?" "Absolutely. Nurses are the end users for most of our applications. Your input is crucial for creating systems that actually work in real-world conditions. Most hospital software seems designed by people who've never actually worked in a hospital. That's exactly the problem we're trying to solve. We spend months shadowing medical staff, understanding workflow patterns, identifying pain points that technology could address." As they sipped their improvised tea, Sarah found herself in the most interesting conversation she'd had in months. Alex asked thoughtful questions about her work, listened carefully to her answers, and shared insights about healthcare technology that revealed both technical expertise and genuine concern for improving patient care. "This tea is perfect," Sarah said, surprised by how much the simple ritual had improved her mood and energy level. "Chamomile has actual calming properties. It's not just placebo effect. I know the pharmacology. I just never take time to actually use natural remedies for myself." "Why not?" The question was simple but profound. Why didn't Sarah take better care of herself? Why did she work double shifts without adequate breaks? Why had she normalized exhaustion and stress as unavoidable aspects of her profession? "I guess I've gotten used to putting everyone else's needs first. Patients, family, work obligations. Taking care of myself feels selfish when there are so many other demands on my time and energy. That's not sustainable long term. I know. But I don't see alternatives right now. The bills won't pay themselves and my patients need competent care." "What if there were ways to make your work more efficient?" Systems that reduced documentation, time-streamlined medication, management, automated routine tasks that don't require nursing judgment. That would be amazing, but most hospital software just creates more work, not less, because it's designed by programmers who don't understand healthcare workflow. That's why user input is so important. Sarah realized she'd been talking with Alex for over 30 minutes, far longer than any break she'd taken during her shift. But instead of feeling guilty about the time, she felt refreshed and energized in a way that surprised her. "I really do need to check on my actual patients now," she said reluctantly. "Of course. Thank you for the most pleasant hospital experience I've ever had. Thank you for the tea, and the reminder that patient care can include actual human connection." "Sarah," Alex said as she reached the door. "Yes. I hope this doesn't sound inappropriate, but would you be interested in continuing this conversation sometime when we're both not in a hospital?" Sarah felt her heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with medical concerns. "Are you asking me out? I'm asking if you'd like to have coffee with someone who thinks you're doing important work and deserves to be appreciated for it." "I don't usually date patients. I won't be a patient after tomorrow. I'll just be a guy who designs software and drinks too much coffee and would like to get to know a remarkable nurse better." Sarah looked at this man who'd shown her more kindness and interest in 30 minutes than she'd experienced in months of social interactions. "Coffee sounds nice," she said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. They exchanged phone numbers, and Sarah finally made it to Mrs. Patterson's room to complete her actual work responsibilities. But for the rest of her shift, she carried with her the memory of genuine conversation, unexpected connection, and the possibility that sometimes the best things in life really did come from making the right mistake at exactly the right moment. When Alex was discharged the next day, he texted Sarah, "Thank you for the best wrong room visit in medical history. Looking forward to coffee when you're ready." Sarah smiled as she typed back, "Thank you for reminding me that taking care of myself isn't selfish. Coffee this weekend. It's a date." Neither of them knew yet that this accidental encounter would grow into something extraordinary, but both sensed that something significant had begun in that dimly lit hospital room over cups of improvised chamomile tea. Sometimes the wrong door really did lead to exactly the right person at precisely the right moment. 6 months later, Sarah and Alex sat in the same coffee shop where they'd had their first official date, celebrating what had become their weekly tradition of Saturday morning breakfast together. The relationship that had begun with an accidental room visit had evolved into something deeper and more meaningful than either had expected. "I still can't believe we met because I was too tired to read room numbers correctly," Sarah said, stirring cream into her cappuccino. "Best navigation error in the history of healthcare," Alex replied, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Although I prefer to think of it as destiny disguised as exhaustion." "How's that? You were exactly where you needed to be at exactly the right moment. Maybe your subconscious knew something your conscious mind didn't." Sarah smiled at his romantic interpretation of what had simply been a long day and a simple mistake. But over the past 6 months, she'd come to appreciate Alex's tendency to find meaning and possibility in circumstances that others might dismiss as random chance. "Speaking of navigation, how's the new software project going?" "Better than expected. The beta testing with your hospital has been incredibly successful. Nurses are reporting 30% reduction in documentation time, which means more time for actual patient care. The staff loves it. Finally, hospital software that actually makes our jobs easier instead of more complicated." Alex's company had developed a comprehensive patient care management system based on insights he'd gathered from shadowing medical staff at multiple hospitals. Sarah had been one of his primary consultants, helping him understand the real-world challenges that nurses faced with existing technology. "Sarah, I want to ask you something," Alex said, his tone growing more serious. "Okay, how would you feel about taking a bigger role in the software development process? Not just consulting, but actually joining the company as our Director of Healthcare Integration." Sarah blinked in surprise. "Are you offering me a job?" I'm offering you a career opportunity that would use your medical expertise in a completely different way. You'd work with hospitals to implement our systems-trained staff and provide ongoing support. You'd also lead the development of new applications based on your understanding of healthcare workflow. Alex, I'm a nurse. I don't know anything about technology companies or software development. You know everything about the problems we're trying to solve. The technical aspects can be learned. The healthcare expertise can't be taught to someone who hasn't lived it. Sarah felt excitement warring with uncertainty. The opportunity sounded incredible, but it would mean leaving bedside nursing, stepping away from direct patient care that had been her identity for years. What would the position involve day-to-day? Hospital visits to assess needs and implement solutions, training sessions with medical staff, collaboration with our development team to design new applications, some travel but mostly regional within driving distance. And the salary? Alex named a figure that was nearly double what Sarah was making as a staff nurse, with benefits that included health insurance, retirement contributions, and stock options in the company. That's more money than I've ever imagined making. It's market rate for someone with your expertise and experience. Sarah, you understand healthcare from the inside in ways that most consultants never will. That knowledge is incredibly valuable. I need to think about this. Of course. Take all the time you need. But I want you to know that this offer isn't because we're dating. It's because you're the most qualified person I know for this role. That afternoon, Sarah called her best friend Lisa to discuss the unexpected opportunity. He's offering you how much money? Lisa practically shouted into the phone. It's not just about the money, though, that would certainly solve a lot of problems. What are you worried about? I became a nurse because I wanted to help people directly. Sitting in meetings and working on software doesn't feel like healthcare to me. Sarah, think about it this way. If you help design systems that make nursing more efficient, you're helping thousands of patients indirectly. Maybe even more people than you could help one-on-one. I hadn't thought about it that way. Plus, you've been complaining about hospital administration and inadequate technology for years. Here's your chance to actually do something about those problems. What if I'm not good at it? What if I fail at something outside my area of expertise? What if you're amazing at it? What if this is exactly what you were meant to do? That evening, Sarah discussed the opportunity with her mother during their weekly dinner together. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity, dear, her mother said. But what does your heart tell you? My heart is confused. Part of me is excited about the possibility of making a bigger impact. Part of me is terrified of leaving nursing, which has been my identity for so long. You wouldn't be leaving nursing, you'd be applying your nursing knowledge in a different way. What do you mean? Sarah, you've always been passionate about improving patient care, not just providing it. This position would let you work on systemic improvements that could benefit far more people than you could help individually. But what if I miss direct patient interaction? Then you could always volunteer at free clinics or find other ways to maintain that connection. But you shouldn't let fear of change prevent you from exploring new possibilities. Over the next week, Sarah visited the offices of Alex's company, met with his team, and learned more about what the position would entail. She was impressed by the company culture, excited by the projects they were working on, and surprised by how much she enjoyed collaborating on technology solutions to healthcare problems. What do you think? Alex asked, as they drove home from her final interview with the company's senior staff. I think I'm scared and excited and completely out of my comfort zone. Those are usually signs that you're considering something worth doing. What if it doesn't work out? What if I'm terrible at business or technology or whatever skills this job requires? Then we'll figure it out together. Sarah, you're one of the smartest, most capable people I know. You've been solving complex problems and managing difficult situations for your entire nursing career. Those skills transfer to any environment. And if it affects our relationship, working together could create complications we haven't anticipated. It could, but it could also give us shared goals and projects that bring us closer together. That night, Sarah lay awake thinking about the decision that could reshape her entire career trajectory. The safe choice was to continue nursing, to stick with what she knew and was good at. The risky choice was to trust Alex's assessment of her potential and step into a completely unfamiliar professional world. But as she considered her options, Sarah realized that her relationship with Alex had already taught her something important about taking chances on unexpected opportunities. Their meeting had been an accident, but their connection had grown because both had been willing to step outside their normal patterns and explore something new. Maybe it was time to apply that same openness to her career. The next morning, Sarah called Alex with her decision. "I want to accept the position," she said, surprising herself with how confident she sounded. "Really, you're sure?" "I'm terrified, but I'm sure. I think Lisa was right. Maybe I can help more people by improving healthcare systems than by working with patients one at a time." "Sarah, I'm so excited to work with you on this. You're going to be amazing." "I hope so. When would I start?" "Whenever you're ready. We can work around your notice period at the hospital and any transition time you need." 2 months later, Sarah walked into her new office at Morrison Healthcare Technologies, carrying a coffee mug that read, "World's Okayest Nurse," and feeling like she was beginning the most exciting adventure of her professional life. The transition hadn't been easy, learning business terminology, understanding software development processes, adapting to corporate culture after years in hospital environments. But Alex had been right about her skills transferring. Her ability to assess complex situations, communicate clearly with diverse groups, and solve problems under pressure served her well in her new role. "How's your first week going?" Alex asked, stopping by her office Friday afternoon. "Overwhelming, but exhilarating. I had no idea how much I'd enjoy working on systemic solutions to problems I've been frustrated about for years." "Any regrets about leaving bedside nursing?" "Some nostalgia, but no regrets. I love knowing that the software we're developing will make life easier for thousands of nurses and improve care for countless patients." "You know what the best part is." "What?" "Getting to see you discover new aspects of your capabilities. You're thriving in ways that don't surprise me at all, but that you're still amazed by." As they walked to the parking lot together, Sarah reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that exhausted night when she'd entered the wrong patient room. A simple mistake had led to meeting Alex, which had led to this new career, which was opening possibilities she'd never imagined. "Alex, can I tell you something?" "Always." "That night we met when I was so tired I couldn't read room numbers correctly. I was at the lowest point I'd been in years. Financially stressed, professionally burned out, personally isolated. I felt like I was just surviving, not really living. And now I feel like I'm building something meaningful. Professional work that excites me, financial security that reduces stress, and a relationship that makes me want to be the best version of myself. All because you walked into the wrong room. All because I walked into the right room at exactly the right moment." That evening, as they shared dinner at Sarah's apartment, Alex pulled out a small box that made Sarah's heart skip. "Sarah Chen," he said, getting down on one knee beside her dining table. "You walked into my life at the exact moment I needed you most. You've made me a better person, a better partner, and somehow even a better software developer." "Alex, I love your compassion, your intelligence, your ability to find solutions to impossible problems. I love how you take care of everyone around you, and how you're learning to take care of yourself, too. I love that you took a chance on a strange man in a hospital room, and then took an even bigger chance on a career change that scared you." Sarah felt tears beginning to flow as Alex opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Sarah said without hesitation. "Absolutely yes." As Alex slipped the ring onto her finger, Sarah thought about the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. A wrong room had led to the right person. A professional mistake had created personal happiness, and taking chances on unexpected opportunities had resulted in love that neither of them had been looking for, but both had needed. Sometimes the most beautiful stories really did begin with simple accidents. And sometimes when you were brave enough to stay in the wrong room, long enough to discover why you were supposed to be there, you found exactly what had been missing from your life. 3 years later, Sarah Morrison stood in the conference room of Morrison Healthcare Technologies, presenting the latest implementation results to a room full of hospital administrators from across the region. The software platform she'd helped design and implement had reduced documentation time by 45% across 12 hospital systems, resulting in measurably improved patient satisfaction scores and decreased nurse burnout rates. The key insight, Sarah explained to the group, was understanding that nurses don't need more technology, we need better technology. Systems that integrate with our natural workflow instead of disrupting it. After her presentation, several administrators approached her with questions about implementing similar systems in their facilities. Sarah had become one of the most sought-after consultants in healthcare technology, known for her unique ability to bridge the gap between clinical practice and technological solutions. "Excellent presentation," said Dr. Williams, the Chief Medical Officer from Regional Medical Center. "Our nursing staff has been complaining about documentation burden for years. When could we schedule an assessment of our current systems?" "I can have my team there next month," Sarah replied, checking her calendar on her phone. "We'll spend a week shadowing your staff, analyzing workflow patterns, and identifying opportunities for improvement." As the meeting concluded and administrators filed out, Alex appeared with 2 cups of coffee and a proud smile. "How did it go?" 3 new contracts and interest from 4 other systems. I think we're going to need to hire additional implementation specialists." "That's incredible. 4 years ago, you were worried about whether you could learn to work in technology. Now you're the most successful healthcare consultant in the region." Sarah accepted her coffee and settled into one of the conference room chairs, feeling the satisfaction that came from work that was both professionally fulfilling and personally meaningful. "You know what I realized during today's presentation?" "What's that?" "I'm helping solve problems that I used to complain about as a bedside nurse. All those nights when I was frustrated with inefficient systems and administrative burden, now I'm actually doing something about those issues." "How does it feel?" "Like I found my calling. I love bedside nursing, but this work allows me to impact thousands of patients indirectly while making life better for the nurses who care for them directly." Alex sat down beside her, and Sarah noticed he had the slightly nervous energy that she'd learned to associate with important conversations. "Sarah, I want to discuss something with you." "Okay." "The company has grown beyond anything I imagined when I started it. We're getting acquisition offers from major healthcare corporations, and some of them are substantial enough that we'd never have to worry about money again." Sarah felt a flutter of anxiety. "Are you thinking about selling?" "I'm thinking about what would make us happiest long-term. The offers would set us up financially for life, but it would also mean giving up control over the company culture and direction." "What's your instinct?" "My instinct is that we've built something special here, not just a successful business, but a workplace where people love what they do and feel like they're making a difference. I'd hate to lose that." Sarah nodded, understanding his dilemma. Morrison Healthcare Technologies had indeed created something rare, a company where employees were passionate about their work, where innovation was driven by genuine desire to solve important problems, and where success was measured not just in profits, but in positive impact on healthcare outcomes. "What would you want to do if money weren't a consideration?" "Keep growing the company, expand into new areas of healthcare technology, maybe develop training programs for other nurses who want to transition into technology roles." "That sounds perfect. But it would mean continued risk, continued responsibility, and probably continued long hours during growth phases." Sarah took Alex's hand, thinking about everything they'd built together, both personally and professionally. "Alex, 4 years ago, I was burned out, financially stressed, and professionally stagnant. You offered me opportunities that transformed my entire life. Now you're asking what I think about taking on even bigger challenges and responsibilities. Yes, I think we should do exactly what feels right to us, regardless of what other people might consider the smart financial choice. We've never made decisions based purely on money, and we shouldn't start now." "So you'd be okay with turning down guaranteed financial security to continue building something we believe in?" "I'd be okay with betting on us again. It worked out pretty well the first time." Alex smiled, and Sarah could see his relief and excitement about continuing to grow their shared vision. "There's one more thing I want to discuss." "What's that?" I want to establish a foundation that provides scholarships for nurses who want to transition into healthcare technology roles. Create pathways for bedside clinicians to bring their expertise to the business side of healthcare. Sarah felt her heart swell with love and admiration for this man who was always thinking about how to create opportunities for others. That's a beautiful idea. What would it look like? Tuition assistance for relevant courses, mentorship programs, internship opportunities, maybe even a formal certification program in healthcare technology integration. How many nurses do you think would be interested in something like that? Based on the emails you get from nurses who've heard about your career transition, hundreds, maybe thousands, there's clearly demand for these opportunities. As they discussed the foundation concept, Sarah realized that their personal love story had evolved into something larger, a shared mission to improve healthcare through better technology and create opportunities for other clinical professionals to expand their impact. Alex, can I tell you something that might sound overly sentimental? Always. That night when I walked into your room by mistake, I was at the end of my rope professionally. I loved nursing, but I was burning out from the systemic problems that made it so difficult to provide good patient care. I remember. You looked exhausted in ways that went beyond just being tired. Meeting you didn't just change my personal life. It gave me hope that healthcare could be better, that the problems I was frustrated about could actually be solved. And now you're solving them. We're solving them. This company, the software we developed, the training programs we're planning, none of it would exist without both of our perspectives and expertise. So you think that accidental room visit was destiny? Sarah considered the question seriously. I think it was preparation meeting opportunity. We were both ready for change, both open to unexpected connections, both willing to take chances on something new. The best kind of accident? The best kind of love story? That evening, as they walked through their neighborhood after dinner, Sarah reflected on how their relationship had grown and evolved alongside their professional partnership. They'd learned to support each other's goals while maintaining their individual identities to work together without losing the romance that had brought them together to build something meaningful that extended beyond their personal happiness. Sarah, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd gone to the right room that night? Sometimes. I probably would have given Mrs. Patterson her medications, finished my shift, and gone home to Mr. Whiskers without any life-changing encounters. And I would have had my procedure, gone home to my empty apartment, and continued living a perfectly adequate but not particularly fulfilling life. Instead, we both got something we didn't know we were looking for. What's that? Partnership. Not just romantic partnership, but real collaboration toward shared goals that matter to both of us. As they reached their front door, Sarah looked at the house they'd bought together 6 months after their wedding, a modest but comfortable place with a home office where Alex could work remotely and a sunroom where Sarah could read and plan implementation strategies. Alex, I have something to tell you. What's that? I'm pregnant. Alex stopped walking and stared at her, his expression shifting from surprise to joy to overwhelming happiness. Really, you're sure? Really, I'm sure. Dr. Martinez confirmed it this morning. Alex swept her into a hug that lifted her off her feet, both of them laughing with the pure joy of unexpected but desperately wanted news. How far along? 8 weeks. I wanted to wait until I was certain before telling you. This is incredible. We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a baby who grows up seeing both parents do work they love in a company built on values they can be proud of, with opportunities we're creating for other people. As they stood on their front porch holding each other and imagining the future they were about to build together, Sarah marveled at the extraordinary journey that had begun with one exhausted mistake in a hospital corridor. The wrong room had led to the right person, the right career, the right life, and now the right family. Sometimes the most beautiful stories really did begin with simple accidents that turned out to be exactly what was supposed to happen all along. And sometimes, when you were brave enough to stay in the wrong place, long enough to discover why you belonged there, you found not just love, but purpose, partnership, and the kind of happiness that came from building something meaningful together. Their daughter, when she arrived 7 months later, would grow up hearing the story of how Mommy and Daddy met, because Mommy got lost in the hospital one night and found exactly what she'd been searching for, without knowing she was searching for anything at all. The wrong room had become the right beginning to everything that mattered most.